truth is the most convincing story that maps onto reality, and that's why the central narrative is falling apart.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
We must see the central narrative for the fiction that it is. We are Americans.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election.
The founders began the fight for human liberty and self-governance, and it's up to us to finish the job.
I'll tell you what, we are in a truth emergency right now.
This is the end game.
Immensely seductive. Quite sure he's right. Obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Say it! Say it!
All right, I'll say it.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
All right, it is Wednesday, January 8th, 2025, the 1449th day of dystopia. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Welcome to the Wednesday subscriber stream, everybody. I was just checking in the chat. Hello, hello. I'm sorry for starting a couple of minutes late today. I went to just grab a link on how long it took to decide that Karen Bass had won the fake election in California in 2022. And the article I happened to pull up was actually fascinating. So we'll go through a little bit of that in a couple of minutes. I want to start off with some other things just quick because they're what we should come to expect by now. I have not watched this yet, but I saw this post right before. That's what messed me up at the end there. And then I had to just convince myself again that it was the 1449th day of dystopia. But I saw it right before, like as the intro was going, and I was like, okay, I got to see what this is about. And I don't want to wait on it. So I'm going to share it with you, and I hope that it's as good as the description suggests. Oh, cool. My Rumble sound is always off. So there we go.
Teach us to know you more clearly, to love you more dearly, and to follow you more nearly each day.
To love thee more dearly, to see thee more clearly, to follow thee more nearly, day by day. By day, amen.
That was beautiful. So how about it? Apparently that's Jimmy Carter's funeral. I don't know what to say anymore. I mean, people love to go along with all of it. They just love it. A woman just responded to me on Truth Social, or maybe it was a bot. I have no idea. Who gets it? She was like, yeah, we shouldn't be following any of these stories. Like, there's things to do in the future, and we've got to do them. And instead, we're like obsessively trying to solve the fake news. It's mindless. Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been making things hilarious. The whole administration has been making things hilarious. This, to me, is unbelievable. And, I mean, everything is unbelievable because it should be unbelievable because you should be able to see that, oh, that's fake. Oh, that doesn't matter. Fox News just, what was this? Yesterday. Biden admin working to effectively ban cigarettes in 11th hour proposal. A gift to cartels, experts say. So the FDA is going to put in a regulatory rule that would effectively ban cigarettes currently on the market in favor of products with lower nicotine levels. So nicotine is like the one good thing in cigarettes. Maybe there are some others. I don't know. I smoked for many years. I love smoking cigarettes. I do not smoke cigarettes now and haven't for nearly 2 years. Please don't congratulate me. I look forward to starting again. But nicotine is actually kind of beneficial. The FDA has no power to do this, okay? And no one ever should listen to it. And if a store stops selling cigarettes, be like, hey, why'd you go along with that? Okay? I don't know what to do. Stock up on cigarettes. Start growing your own tobacco or wacky tobacco. Yeah, they can't do that. That doesn't mean anything. And Joe Biden's not a real president, but they're showing you. That's the point. That's when, Burning Bright, I think, was the one who started saying this. Our boy Blue talking about Joe Biden. It's kind of a reference to the, let me see. I'll just show you for the people out there who aren't down with movie culture the way some of us might be. Boy Blue. So this is from the movie Old School. And so the movie Old School is hilarious. Some adults, I guess I think they were having fallings out with their wives. And so they decided to start a fraternity in a house together and then just invite other adults to join their fraternity and had pledging and all the rest of it. And so there was a character in that movie that they referred to as My Boy Blue. And so this is what it's from.
All right, here's the deal. Listen up. Altogether, we picked 14 pledges. Wait, who's this guy?
Well,
okay, I'm going to skip forward.
There's an old Navy vet who hangs around my store a lot.
He looks like he's 100 years old. He wants to pledge.
Are you kidding me? The old man River won't shut up about it. Go time!
To the night's main event. In this corner, weighing in at 110 pounds and pushing 89 years of age, the recent recipient of a brand new plastic hip, Joseph Blue Pulaski.
Hey, Blue, you sure you're okay with this?
Just ring the fucking bell, you pansy.
So that right there is the original Our Boy Blue. The person who I mentioned who commented on Truth Social about focusing on what's ahead rather than these nonsense soap opera stories is in the chat. Hi, Julie Beans. She says she's not a bot. I mostly believe her because she's a paid subscriber to my show. But hey, man, they could slip through. So that's Our Boy Blue. And the idea, of course, is that Joe Biden fully under control of people who are not Joe Biden. And Joe Biden, who is not attempting to make himself look good and is trying to bring down the entire party with him because he's under control. Or, hey, I guess it's possible that Joe Biden is just trying to save his own hide and trying to push through everything they could ever want, hoping it'll stick, hoping that the people will go along with it, hoping that regime-aligned businesses will go along with it, which, by the way, the tobacco companies, they might. The fiat regime prints money that they create out of nothing, and then they give other people that money so that their system can operate. We are trying to create a parallel system to compete with that system so that one day the parallel system hits over that kind of 50% mark and more people are like, well, that's the system I want to participate in, not this system of total exploitation. But while the system of total exploitation continues to exist, the various branches of that system are going to get paid to the extent that the system cares about them. They're going to get paid one way or another. Now, cigarettes are never going to go away. And in my estimation, they shouldn't. It would be nice if they weren't intentionally poisoned, of course. But they're wonderful. They're a great addition to life. And, I don't smoke them now, but one day again. So that's not all our boy Blue has done today. Our boy Blue also did this truly, absolutely unbelievable thing. And he's, I guess, pretty happy about it. So this is from X, formerly Twitter. Kanakoa said President Biden announces he's a grandfather after a briefing on devastating Los Angeles fires. But the good news is I'm a grandfather as of today. My granddaughter had a full-on baby girl, baby boy. So I'm going to remember this day for a lot of reasons. Okay? Is that the sort of thing that the families whose homes have burned are going to have a lot of respect for? So, as many people know, I did live in Los Angeles for 18 and a half years, okay? I was a key figure in nightlife in Los Angeles for 15 years. I know literally thousands of people, and I talked to a handful of them today. And they know people whose homes are totally destroyed. One of my buddies spent last night up all night helping people evacuate with his truck. Now, hey, man, that's what I hear. I'm not there on the ground to witness it. I have no reason to believe that the fires themselves aren't real, okay? But, of course, I can't verify that directly. So I want to talk about a couple of things here because the major info op to respond to these fires in the anti-democrat way, this is the controlled opposition dynamic official story from the uniparty right, okay? They are playing the controlled opposition to the left. This is Karen Bass's fault. Karen Bass was in Ghana. Karen Bass may well have been in Ghana. Doesn't matter to me. She's apparently back now, but was she supposed to cancel the trip for fires? Maybe. How did they know about the fires in advance? Was she just supposed to suspect fires? Or were the fires planned and her trip to Ghana were planned to coincide at the same time in order to be able to tell this sort of story? You got to remember that the Republicans and Democrats aren't actually in competition, okay? Sovereign nationalists around the world, even if you're not a nationalist, you just care about sovereignty. If you do not want the regime's agenda to be the future of humanity, these people are, all of us, we're prepared to push back on both of these groups at the same time. And the regime and the Uniparty are not used to that because they have their people on one side and people on the other side. And those people argue all the time. And everybody else sees them arguing, thinks that they must be the authorities within these movements. And then they argue for them on their behalf, creating a reality through hyperstition of two actual sides in combat. Okay, but there's no actual combat there. It's all the same team cementing the same underlying narrative so that the belief structure is never shaken. All right? That's all it is. So the anti-Karen Bass narrative, most people have heard it by now. She like laid off part of the fire department or cut their budget by $17.8 million or something, blah, blah, blah. And she's cut funding and there's no water for the fire hydrants. I mean, what are we talking about here, right? All good, I understand. Exposure, let people know what reality actually looks like. I get it that that's a necessary step, and if this is the way the necessary step is taken, I mean, you can't even say so be it because there are real people affected. And, I mean, it's not good for anyone in Los Angeles to drive around the city knowing that it is a smoldering war zone. And that's exactly what it is, bud. So it's hard to say so be it. But the lesson has to be learned. And I'm hopeful that one result of this terribly tragic event will be that people learn that lesson. And so I posted this earlier on Truth Social. It's important to remember that California declares states of emergency all the time so they can access, quote unquote, federal funds. Regime money, not flown, okay? I want to be clear about my language here. Moved through the federal government as a middleman to these states. And as it moves through the federal government to these states, it is the blood and sweat and lives of the American people that give that money value, okay? And so we are paying for it that way. Our energy is being stolen from us so that the regime can decimate cities and then build them back up again, or destroy state economies and then fill the coffers of the state so that they can keep going with the same plan. And that's the situation in California. California is a totally captured communist state. And it's possible that all the states are still, okay? And I'm not saying all hope is lost. The thing everybody is afraid of has already happened, okay? We're on the way out. So there's no reason not to be optimistic, but the understanding of the actual situation is required. It's important to remember that California declares states of emergency all the time so they can access federal funds and operate in unconstitutional ways. Many states do this, of course, red states too. Uniparty, okay? It's the Uniparty's strategy. This is a tactic the Uniparty uses, I should say. You have to keep this in mind every time they find a reason to declare a state of emergency they already wanted to declare. The regime claims droughts to justify water usage limits after creating their own shortages to increase the price of resources paid by the people. Isn't it weird that we are told, the stories we're told about dams, when dams change entire environments? I mean, there might be, I've considered, I don't know if this is true, somebody in the chat might. I've considered that whether or not there are places in this country that are quote unquote deserts that are that way because the dams don't flow normally. It seems odd. It is a thought. It's not fleshed out. I don't want to get off track. Okay. So they have dams on the one end, and that stops the water supply. And then they tell us there's a drought to convince us that climate change is real. And then they tell us to diminish our water usage. You can only do your laundry on Tuesdays. Full control, taking full control over the people, treating them as subjects. They create brownouts through mismanagement and use them to show the people that the state is fully in control and has power over them. They do this during the summer. Now, does the power actually go out because they've mismanaged the power grid? Maybe sometimes. But why can't they just hit a switch and be like, darn, there goes Hacienda Heights. Okay? Hey, sorry, guys. Sorry. Your fellow Angelinos, they couldn't stop powering their electric cars. Sorry. I cannot prove, but do suspect that states are creating flooding through the control of dams and shutting off drains. Cyber attacks, undersea cables cut. We've talked about these things many times, okay? These are things that they are able to make seem like natural occurrences or things someone else did when all they have to be is a decision to push a button, okay? If a city can close its drains and there is a big storm. Think about if they can control the weather too, huh? And the stormwater can't drain, and the streets flood, and maybe buildings or houses are ruined. Do we know that the drains were open, or were they just like closed for a while? Because pushing that button would create the exact scenario that they wanted before the rains came. And I said, it's all a clown show if they have power over something. And when a disaster occurs directly linked to the thing they control, they use the disaster to forward the projects they already had planned. It is only responsible to assume that they caused the disaster. And in this case, thinking that climate change or wildfires did what's happening in Los Angeles right now, I mean, that's like unsurvivably retarded. And I mean, I'm not wishing that on anybody, but at some point, like how long are you going to go down that path and defend this stuff and defend your version of reality where this stuff couldn't happen intentionally? Despite knowing that for centuries and centuries, it's been happening intentionally. You can go through history and find stories of governments destroying people's homes and property. Now, we're always told that our country doesn't do that, and our allied countries don't do that. It's other countries that do that. But of course, that's an inverted perception, okay? It's the regime that does that to force the people to destabilize societies so that the regime can take more power, so that the people are forced to depend on the regime for everything because they've been absolutely destroyed. And, you know, the last thing, of course, is if they can control the weather, then really that's that, you know, because then the hurricanes, I mean, can they control the weather? Can they heat the sky? I saw clouds over the place I live yesterday in the sky. Line, 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 all across the sky. One side to the other, line, 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 line. Thin lines of clouds. Now, I've never seen that in my life. And I don't know how it's possible naturally. Okay. But not too happy about it. And it just so happens that, you know, tomorrow is when the big storm's coming. Very strange time. So let's go to Karen Bass, because here's the thing. Apparently this guy, Rick Caruso, owns Palisades Village, which has been utterly decimated. That's the place everybody keeps supposedly sent that's the place featured in that video everyone keeps forwarding around. The one most people have seen. Even Elon Musk posted it, saying that his friend had showed it to him. And I guess, you know, that makes it real. Again, I'm saying I know people there who have been dealing with the issue, so I am not claiming there is not a fire, okay? That video looks very strange, but I'm not claiming there's not a fire and there's not an absolute disaster on the ground. I'm basically to the point of accepting that's definitely true, all right? So Rick Caruso owns this incredible property, and it's all been decimated. Well, Rick Caruso is a real estate investor who I guess at this point, it's not even 2 years ago. 2022 elections, Rick Caruso ran for mayor of Los Angeles against the communist Karen Bass in a fake election that took, 10 or 12 days extra to actually declare a winner in, and never protested a thing about elections, never said a word. He's basically a Democrat who ran as a Republican I guess, to contest Karen Bass. And now he's got a real estate opportunity like few people could ever imagine once they clean up the mess. And with the all the anti-Karen Bass news, people are left thinking, man, we should have elected Rick Caruso. Because, of course, everybody in California thinks they have real elections. Let me ask the machine something quickly. Okay. So I just want to make sure that I have this exactly right. So it was 8 days after the election that California finally announced that Karen Bass was the winner. And let's take a brief look at this article in the Los Angeles Times, because this is what delayed me. I found this and I was like, wow, there's some nuggets in here. Okay. So Karen Bass elected mayor, becoming first woman to lead Los Angeles. Bass defeated businessman Rick Caruso in the Los Angeles mayor's race, according to an Associated Press projection Wednesday, making her the first woman and second Black Angelino elected to lead the city in its 240. Gosh, man. Sometimes I just am trying to read ahead and think ahead, and then I just stop being able to talk. The 241-year history. The 69-year-old congresswoman achieved victory despite Caruso spending more than $100 million of his own fortune on his mayoral bid, shattering local spending records and pumping previously unprecedented sums into field outreach and TV advertising. $100 million he spent to become mayor, to attempt to become the man who would save Los Angeles from these communists. Karen Bass ended up winning by, they say, 90,000 votes. Why did it take 8 days? That's an awfully small number of votes for LA mayor, by the way. I mean, I haven't looked at a map of the LA city territory. How many voters are there in the city of Los Angeles? I'm putting who are eligible to vote for mayor, just to be sure that we're getting the right number here. As of the most recent data, there are approximately 2,120,500. Gosh, man, I am dumb today. 2,120,515 registered voters in the city of Los Angeles. The figure was reported during the 2022 mayoral election, which saw a significant turnout with nearly 928,000 ballots cast. That's not a significant turnout. That's like, I don't know, quick math. 3 out of 7, 43%. That's not high turnout. Why aren't they voting? What's happening here? I don't know. Hey, man, I don't know. All I know is that whatever the final vote count is, that's what the voters said. Caruso, 63, outspent Bass more than 11-1, but was ultimately unable to prevail as a former Republican in a sapphire blue California city. So former Republican. Vote by mail ballots processed, blah, blah, blah. The results seesawed on election night. Those were just the preliminary results, of course. Caruso had eked out a lead the next morning. But then the mail-in ballots processed after Election Day strongly favored Bass, and her margin in the race grew steadily. I'm proud of the work we did to engage long-neglected communities, giving a voice to the unheard and me more real estate opportunities. Wait, that's not actually in there. and to the light we shined on the biggest challenges facing our great city. There will be more to come from the movement we built, but for now, as a city, we need to unite around Mayor-elect Bass and give her the support she needs to tackle the many issues we face. Congratulations, Karen, and Godspeed. Oh, how magnanimous. That'll get him lots of friends in Los Angeles. In fact, that'll help him keep his friends in Los Angeles, which is the point of those kinds of statements. And so now Rick Caruso has another enormous real estate opportunity. Let's continue. In the days before the election, Bass said her first priority upon taking office would be to declare a state of emergency on homelessness and work to get people housed in a city where as many as 41,000 people sleep in tents. 8 years ago, 7 to 8 years ago now, they passed a proposition called HHH. The amount of money allotted was already extraordinary. It was something like $140,000 a unit. And now I shouldn't say now, years ago, it had already escalated 5x without maybe 10,000 units being built. I think that was the number. $700,000 per unit to house the homeless in Los Angeles, and it didn't even happen, but they were cycling the money through. Give a homeless person $700,000, that person can go anywhere in the country and buy a house bigger than that person can ever use, no matter how big their crack parties get. You know? So you're going to declare a state of emergency on the homelessness? Gosh, man. The words, sometimes they're just not working. That's insane. That just means that she already wanted to declare a state of emergency, just as I mentioned a minute ago. So in the days before the election, she said her first priority was to declare a state of emergency. That's amazing. Okay. She wants the state of emergency because with the state of emergency in place, then you can dip into federal pools of money. Bass, a black woman, has spent decades in public service, evolving from an activist organizer to pragmatic elected official as she fought for incremental gains for underserved LA communities. These people are insane. She's a communist. That's what it says right there. An activist organizer. What is that? It's Barack Obama in a little lesbian package. Well, Barack Obama's kind of a lesbian too. Caruso blanketed his campaign materials with the word Democrat and largely sought to avoid discussion of his partisan political evolution on the trail. But he shifted tactics in mid-October, airing a TV ad that addressed the subject head-on and discussed how the Republican Party shifted to a place that didn't represent my values. So, what did that little R next to his name ever mean? He's just part of the Uniparty. His campaign hoped to replicate the success of Richard Riordan, a centrist Republican businessman whose victorious 1993 bid for mayor relied on his outsider bona fides and a then record-breaking influx of the first-time candidates' personal funds. So he outspent, they said 11-1. So that's like $100 million to $9 million? Is that what it is? Yeah, he spent more than $100 million. So she spent around 10, they're saying. And somehow her $10 million spent on the election defeated the $100 million man in California's real elections. And the $100 million man was like, hey, congratulations, you must have got me somehow in this 43% turnout fake election. How many of those 2.120515 million Los Angeles voters are even real? Did they all skip the midterms? 43% turnout? What was, let me just see what California's overall 2022 midterm turnout was. In the California midterm in 2022, it was approximately 43% of eligible voters. So this is all of California. That marked a significant decline from the 2020 presidential election, where the turnout was about 66.8%. How about that? Latinos somehow dropped sharply by 38 percentage points. Real Latinos, or just the people they signed up at the DMV, whose names and identities they steal to place on fake votes or to assign fake votes to? It's not like they even need to create the ballots. And also, they let people print out their ballots and fill them out at home and send them in. California's elections are fake, okay? But the narrative behind this is still interesting, and this should just be more revelatory information proving that California's elections are fake. What was the turnout in Gavin Newsom's recall election? 58.4%. So more people turned out to stand up and say at a 66% rate that Gavin Newsom was their guy. And then there was a 13% drop-off for the midterms. How does that happen? Well, it doesn't happen, okay? They have fake elections. Unbelievable. The race grew uglier in its final months as both candidates fought fire with fire. But how? I'm just saying. The LA Times. I didn't say it. I mean, we're connecting the two things, and maybe there's just no connection there. Or, hey, maybe there is. I mean, how deep down do you want to go? I'm happy to go there. Anytime. People think they know a lot of things that they don't know, and there are plenty of things that I don't know. I'm not saying I know all the things that they are wrong about. I know what the right answer is. I'm not saying that at all. But it's becoming really easy to tell when someone has no idea what they're talking about, and because they're always making a claim to authority. Well, this says this. I heard this on this. You know that this is this way. Everybody knows that. Okay? That's most of people's knowledge. So you can know right away, like, oh, you don't know that. And if you need to, you can try to make them support that thing that they definitely don't know. And then if you're able to expose clearly that the point they're making is something they have no clue about, well, then you kind of got them. You know, it's hard to make them, it's hard for them to make you look stupid or racist or ignorant or uncaring or any of the rest of it, when the reasons they support a certain position are reasons that they don't even understand themselves. Okay. And it's an unstoppable strategy. And then at the point where you reach that bottom, and it is understood by both parties that they have no idea what they're talking about, don't continue the discussion as though they do. I mean, if it's a friend or a family member or something, be like, okay, well, I just want you to understand that it's clear you don't know anything about that subject. Okay. So let's take that subject off the table. And now that point no longer matters for you. That's not an acceptable reason to deny this or believe this or whatever it is. And then you move on from there. But you can't just say things because the TV said them and expect other people to take you seriously anymore. And I know that there's still a lot of people out there that don't believe that, and that's fine. I'm just saying that if we are to advance, then we need to proceed with other people that way, and we need to expect to be proceeded with that way, okay? If we can't support our positions, then we don't have positions. We are repeating something that we thought sounded right, okay? And it's okay to say, I haven't thought about that issue very much or researched that issue very much, but I've heard some things about it, and these are the things that sound like they are true to me. Nothing wrong with that. Okay, we can extend conversations by saying that this or that is possible and maybe it's something else, but we should have an understanding of that going in and be able to back up all the claims we're making that our arguments hinge on. Okay, if we're wrong about a factual claim here or there, okay, but if there is a factual claim or a principled claim central to an argument, and the person is not able to substantiate that central claim they want you to accept as the reason you're wrong, well, that's just rejected out of hand. And you don't back down from that, okay? There's no, that's not fair, or what are you talking about, man? You just don't know what you're talking about. Be like, okay, Commie, well, our business is done here. Back to Karen Bass. The real estate developer built some of the region's best-known retail centers, but had little name recognition when he entered the field. Unprecedented spending and an onslaught of advertising helped Caruso surge propulsively into contention and finish second in the primary. But Bass retained her status as a robust frontrunner through much of the months-long battle to succeed Garcetti. Now, while we're at it, we might also mention that one of the sectors that got hit hardest with the whole COVID, now you work from home thing, was commercial real estate. And how are retail centers doing? Oh, yeah, they were shut down. We weren't allowed to go to those in California. Okay, the stores were closed for a while, and then they would open, and people had to abide all the COVID policies. And I'm sure Rick Caruso and all his interests went right along with all of that. So commercial real estate took a hit. Retail centers took a hit. People weren't allowed to do all sorts of things. We were basically they tried to confine us to our homes. So a person like Rick Caruso probably took a big knock having to deal with COVID. And they don't want their people, as we were saying at the beginning, to take a big hit because of their agenda. So they return to them some wealth and some power and to take care of some other interests that are already on the agenda. And you can see when a tragic event occurs and they already have some response prepared that promotes an agenda they were already promoting, you got to think about whether or not they're just planning to do it all on purpose. I am not, by the way, trying to cast aspersions on Rick Caruso. I don't know the man. I could be reading this wrong. All right? Maybe this is inverted somehow. But the fact that he did not contest the stolen election, and the fact that he says things about this, like this, about not aligning with the Republican Party, we know what that's code for. He is the person who stands to benefit the most, I would imagine, from these fires. And the fires are pretty clearly intentional. So, cui bono, It has to be that. It has to be that. There's no room in anyone's mind for giving the regime the benefit of the doubt. Like, no, that's not possible. People should be, and I'm not saying go full on, go crazy or anything like that, although I'm certain that a bunch of us have had moments where we think the sky is falling when we're waking up and realizing how some of this is. I don't want anybody to go crazy, but people should reclaim their survival instinct, okay? And understand that they're being attacked. There's the war between the people, and hopefully Trump, I believe Trump very strongly, and the global regime. And all of its many branches and assets, okay? And if you are going to give them the benefit of the doubt in a situation like this because you're unwilling to believe that people could do this on purpose, gosh, man. I mean, there are people who have mentioned, I know people in Los Angeles who are clued into this. And by the way, I hear this is actually waking a lot of people up. That is what my friends say. Don't know it to be true. I imagine they're probably getting messages, and this is what the people in Los Angeles are saying. This is a legitimate way to acquire information. It's not definitely true, but it might be good information because I know these people. And I have generally known them to be honest people for years and years and years. So if they say they had an experience, I'm going to trust them. So they're saying that people are waking up, and there's also an undercurrent of conversation about the Getty Center, which a lot of people claim has tunnels from underneath, that's out by the coast, and up to, I think, the Playboy Mansion, or I don't remember the geography of that part of town well enough offhand to say, but I'm putting out the rumors, okay? These are rumors. I don't know. But again, I made the argument in greater length the other day. I think it's important to be able to say, hey, this is something I heard, and do that easily and openly. Could be right. It could be wrong. There are people who will attempt to punish you if that is wrong and take away your credibility. And those people are the people who accept information from authority as a practice, because they are trying to maintain their own authority by trying to make you look like the one who's not thinking the thing through. That is an inversion. It was only in the final weeks of the race that polling significantly tightened. I'll be damned. As Caruso poured roughly $3 million to $4 million a week into his barrage of advertising. Well, what the hell is advertising? You think people in LA were like watching television and saw Rick Caruso ads and were like, yeah, or getting his dumb text messages and getting all riled up, or seeing his little videos on social media and like, we're going to close the gap with Karen Bass? Clown show. Caruso aimed to run up his lead with San Fernando Valley voters, Latinos and moderates. Wait, he was going to run up his lead with Latinos, and Latinos are the group that failed to turn out the most? Darn. What luck. What poor luck for Rick Caruso. But Bass maintained a strong backing from women, liberals, and registered Democrats. Well, of course, women know that Karen Bass is the only choice. Rick Caruso, the male Democrat, gosh, he's just scary. What's he going to do? Take away our abortions? We can't have that. The regime demands a sacrifice. Lay your baby down on the metal table. That's actually what they did with the vaccines, too. Bass's political consciousness took shape at the apex of the civil rights movement as a young girl listening to the news before dawn each morning with her letter carrier father. Gosh, what a sweet story. She was so inspired as a child by the civil rights movement, which was, the Black Lives Matter of the 1960s. So inspired that she has gone on to lead a fruitful career in communism. That is really amazing. That is really, really something. So I have a feeling that this fire thing, I'm down with all of the anti-Karen Bass stuff. All good. In fact, let's just take a brief look at this here. Karen Bass, a Democratic congresswoman from California, has publicly denied being a communist. Yeah, communists haven't figured that trick out. Just lie about your communism. In an interview, she stated, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a communist, and emphasized her lifelong affiliation with the Democrat Party and her Christian faith. How are you supporting the Democrat Party if you're a Christian? Huh? How's that? How's that work? Oh, you're one of those people who calls themselves a Christian. Got it. Despite her assertions, Bass's past has drawn scrutiny, particularly regarding her involvement with the Venceremos Brigade in the 1970s, a group that supported Fidel Castro's regime in Cuba. Critics have pointed to her visits to Cuba and her previous praise for Castro as evidence of her leftist sympathies. And, we talked about this stuff while we were going through the Bay of Pigs and what was the other incident? Oh, and White Squall on Badlands Story Hour. Now, that is an interesting situation down there. But that's why people might assume she's a communist. Also, she has been criticized for honoring a leader of the Communist Party USA in congressional remarks. Oh, maybe it's worth reading that whole paragraph. I just thought that was so nice. Bass has acknowledged that she was influenced by political ideologies during her youth, including those associated with communism. She described the impact of white radicals and noted that some of her mentors were members of the Communist Party. I mean, so zero love whatsoever for Karen Bass. I mean, I'm opposed to all of that in every way a person could be opposed. And yet, I'm also opposed fully to Rick Caruso. Why would anybody respect a man with that scenario in 2022? Knowing that he had taken a massive hit, like just out of necessity, like all commercial real estate was getting crushed. So he loses in a fake election and congratulates his communist opponent, all because he's the kind of Republican that Californians need. Now, that's not true. It's very easy for the Uniparty to pull that trick and say, this is a very blue state. Therefore, the Republicans in this state are also very blue and would never back someone who is very red. Now, let's get away from very blue and very red because they're the same thing, including in California, including in places like Orange County. They're more like Texas, fine, but there's plenty of regime corruption, plenty of Uniparty corruption in Texas, all over Texas, okay? So red state, blue state, doesn't even matter. It's just a Uniparty. They're Uniparty. The idea that a real election in California could not be won by Donald Trump is nonsense, okay? So they don't actually need a very, very moderate Republican or a guy who used to be Republican but now is independent, even though he's catering to Democrats. It's all a show. It's all a charade. It is a fraud. And again, you know, day one, these are just initial reactions, okay? Doesn't have to be serious. Just has to be a possibility that might emerge in a potential reality ahead. And if and when it does, we will be prepared to understand it because we thought about it right now, rather than continuing to, let me just see this. And I'm not trying to go after these guys, man, but sometimes it's just like, give me a break. You know, there are people who are spending all day long doing total liberal failure tweets about fires from Africa as hydrants run dry and city burns. And I'm sure there are a bunch more. Yeah, there you go. There you go. There's my buddy CanCon. Again, I'm not trying to slam the Gateway Pundit. I'm just saying, you know, this is the kind of clickbait story that can send you down a distraction hole for days. And I'm not saying there's nothing to it. Something terrible has certainly happened. Seems so. And there will be people who are actively benefiting from what has happened. And it's important to know who those people are. But the effort to pin this on the Democrats and Karen Bass is kind of pointless. Gavin Newsom has managed the state terribly, obviously. But even beyond the mismanagement, there's clearly something else going on. And so, you know, dunking on Democrats is pointless. Democrats don't matter. Okay, they don't matter. Forget about Democrats. Forget about owning the Dems. Forget about owning the libs. Forget about owning your friends and relatives as you furiously send them links. Ha ha, look what your favorite people messed up again. Who cares? Like, I have family members. I have friends who believe really unconscionably stupid things. Okay? And they think the same about me, by the way. Then again, when we get in a conversation, I'm like, hey, do you actually know anything about this? And they're like, well, no, but no, you're wrong. Okay. I don't care about those people's opinions. Okay. I either love them or like them or we're acquaintances or whatever it is. But I don't talk to them about politics. I don't try to prove to them that I'm right, because what difference does it make? They have to figure it out for themselves or not figure it out. It's not my choice. I've presented them with the information. I've told them what to think. I've told them where there is a fount of counter-narrative viewpoints that they can drink from. Okay, but at some point, convincing other people who are not even open-minded enough to listen to what you're saying cannot be the purpose of all of this. Okay, so we don't need to prove that the Democrats are bad because they're the uniparty. We don't need to prove that they're hypocrites because, first of all, uniparty Republicans are equally as hypocritical. And again, also, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get them to give up their beliefs for that. You're not going to get them to give up their beliefs for links and sources, no matter how many you send them. It's absolutely irrelevant. Okay? The point is to expand the Overton window and to let them know, hey, here's what I think. At some point in the future, you will realize that I was right, or that I was at least headed in the right direction. Okay? There's no way that the thing the TV says is going to turn out to be right. Okay? It's something else. So bypass and move on with your life. And if it's friends and family, I know that's a little more difficult, but you don't have to talk politics with them. You don't have to convince them. You really don't have to. Make the argument you want to make it once. If they ask you questions because they're curious about what you're saying, have a discussion. I'm not saying cut these people off or abandon them or anything, but if you've explained your viewpoint and it's clear that all they want to do is make sure you know that either you're definitely wrong, but they don't know why, or you're a bad person, but they don't know why, well, you don't need to take the time just to get there when you know that's where you're going, right? Which is why with strangers, obviously, I just tell them they sound vaccinated and put up the stuck on retard thing. I don't need to have those conversations. Why would anyone have those conversations? Especially at this point, okay? If somebody seeks information, help them find information. That's it. You can't force people to take on the truth, of course. People have a real hard time with it when it comes to this stuff because this is actual people's lives that are being messed with. And the forces that are messing with them are very complex. And it's not just one of them, which makes it even scarier. And then you think about the fact that actually they can target these fires with technology. And if they can target and create fires with that technology and make sure that those fires are in some sense controlled where they want them to be controlled, it seems that they have that ability, then you have to at least think about it, don't you? It's irresponsible not to think about it at that point because you can't just blame it on climate change because you're worried about someone calling you stupid. Blaming it on climate change is stupid. I mean, blaming it on climate change is blaming it on something scientists made up and that people believed because they were coerced and conditioned to believe it. And so the fact that people believe something scientists made up allows the regime to get away with this. All right? And we talked about it at some length, I believe, yesterday. Scientific materialism and all of it. But the worship of science, the worship of math, as though these are objective sources of knowledge, and everyone involved is doing their best to be true and faithful. Preposterous. That's what allows this to happen. Okay? The science and the math are just other tools to trick you. That's not all they are, but the regime uses them to do that. And because they do that, it means you should be extremely skeptical about everything that is justified on the basis of math or science. It should go without saying. These people are insane, okay? And people will claim that these events are caused by climate change. Because alternatively, they have to accept that the people whose team they're on, when it comes to things like climate change and COVID and vaccines and all the rest, are lying to them. And they're creating the disasters. Why would you lie about the cause of a disaster unless you created it? Right? I mean, or you're trying to protect someone who created it. I don't see any other reason. I don't see any other reason why you would lie about something like that. But they're obviously lying. Are they retarded enough that they believe it? Maybe. Are they servile enough that they will repeat it despite not believing it? Also, maybe. Strong, maybe even. But ultimately, come on. Okay. Do you have to say anything else about fires? I don't know. I'm going to check the chat for just a second. I did not expect to just launch on a hour-long rant over that. These things happen, I suppose. All right, everybody seems to be hanging in there. Happy New Year to those of you who have not caught the live streams but are here as subscribers. Thank you very much for your support. I would not be able to do all of this without you. I really wouldn't. Okay. I had some things that I wanted to be sure I never did when I undertook this effort. I never wanted to do ads of companies I didn't support. And, basically at this point, there's zero ads. I didn't monetize my show for 2 years. I didn't want to make people pay for information that I thought they needed. And I didn't want it to be you have to do this thing. So I wanted to find a business model that would allow me to give the show away for free while also making it financially sustainable. And I just decided that if I could make the show good enough and valuable enough to people in their lives, then they would be happy to support me financially a little bit going forward. And I hope that I am supplying that kind of value. Okay. Somebody, by the way, never mind. There was a comment that I almost misread and was going to mention, and now I will not, because it's going to sound then like I'm promoting that concept. And if and when the show gets much bigger and I keep the same model and more people who want to support this want to donate, then I will make more money that way, and I don't have to do any of the awful things to make money. And so that means that it's just entirely reliant on me to create $5 worth of value in people's lives every month. And, I hope I'm doing that. But the point is, it is your support that has allowed me to actually use this business model and sustain a life for myself while I do this in Badlands. So thank you very much. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So there's another clip from the press conference yesterday, and I think we might have gone over it a little bit, but there was such a little nugget in there that I can't go without updating on that. It's not what I want to talk about today primarily at all. There were some funny memes from Trump on the Greeland stuff that I will put up, but that's how long I want to spend on it. This video, a little conversation in that. And so please hold me to that, because there is something else that I really want to talk about that I've been kind of holding on to for a couple of days. And it's going to mesh very well with what we've what we've been discussing the last couple of days. But let's just go to this Trump clip quickly. So this is from the press conference at Mar-a-Lago yesterday, right?
You would suggest.
Listen, I don't care what he says.
Sir Lopez, you said you were considering military force to acquire Panama and Greenland. Are you also considering military force to annex and acquire Panama?
No. Economic force.
because Canada and the United States, that would really be something. You get rid of that artificially drawn line and you take a look at what that looks like. And it would also be much better for national security. Don't forget, we basically protect Canada. But here's the problem with Canada. So many friends up there. I love the Canadian people. They're great. But we're spending hundreds of billions a year to protect it. We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. We're losing massive. We don't need their cars. You know, they make 20% of our cars. We don't need that. I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have.
I want to go back and just hear that a little bit again, okay? About how we don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber.
That I'd rather make them in Detroit. We don't need the cars. We don't need their lumber. We have massive fields of lumber. We don't need their lumber. We have to unrestrict them because stupid people put, restrictions on, but I can do that with an executive order. We don't need anything they have. We don't need their dairy products. We have more than they have. We don't need anything. So why are we losing $200 billion a year and more to protect Canada? And I said that to, as I called him, Governor Trudeau. I said, listen, what would happen if we didn't subsidize you, if we didn't, because we give them a lot of money. We help them. As an example, we're buying icebreakers, and Canada wants to join us in the buying of icebreakers. I said, we don't really want to have a partner in the buying of icebreakers. We don't need a partner. But no right. Nope. No right. Here's what we have. We have a right not to help them with their financial difficulties because we owe $36 trillion too. We're going to start knocking it out pretty fast, but we're going to be able to do it because of energy and other things. But no right. No right. But why are we supporting a country $200 billion plus a year? Our military is at their disposal. All of these other things, they should be a state. That's why I told Trudeau when he came down, I said, what would happen if we didn't do it? He said Canada would dissolve. Canada wouldn't be able to function if we didn't take their 20% of our car market.
All right, so I think you get the picture there. So he's stating clearly that he doesn't intend to take them over by force and doesn't think that there will be an issue there. He said it's going to be an economic thing. There's no right to take them over, but we do have a right not to pay for any of their stuff, to not give them money. So he described that we don't need their cars and we don't need their lumber. Deals were set up that have us purchasing Canadian cars and Canadian lumber rather than building them here while we protect Canada. This is the Uniparty United States, the evil twin faction, right? The United States under the regime's control, and Trump is talking about the view of the United States under anti-regime control. And that's the only thing that matters. Regime versus anti-regime. It does not matter at all that that's called Canada, and we have this border, and are we going to annex them, and are we going to take their liberal voters? I swear, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. We don't want to take Canada because we're going to have their liberal voters. We don't have real elections. Canada doesn't have real elections. Everything's propaganda, okay? We need to get through those problems, not worry about voters and fake elections. Now, there is reason to be concerned about the further centralization of nations around the world. I am very hopeful and very confident, both, that the situation is not us annexing Greenland, us annexing Canada, us annexing anything in Central America. I believe the plan is to have all of these nations remain sovereign nations that are part of a unified continent where we are militarily protecting the entire thing. All right? Like, we're the big dog. Okay? It's okay to be the big dog in the region and exert authority over these nations, but you also have to let the nations do what they want to do and live as they want to live and sustain themselves through their own productivity. So, the war is against the regime. And on that note, actually, I was having a conversation in my chat today. Somebody was, and listen, man, I'm basically a soft war maxi when it comes to Bitcoin. I'm convinced that the technology is good, understanding that I am ignorant and cannot know truthfully, fully, whether it is or not. Okay, that's beyond my understanding. And I certainly can't know for certain how it's going to evolve in the world. But I know that most of the people who are into it and most of the people who are investing in it are scientific materialists. And most of the people running the program are scientific materialists who bow to the math and science. And when that's the case, there's good reason to be concerned about who those people up top are and what their intentions are and what their strategies are for promoting their agenda, which is not our agenda. Okay? Certainly not my agenda. I don't mean to speak for anybody else. And I inquired about whether the person had read The Sovereign Individual or read Curtis Yarvin. These are books and Curtis Yarvin's a person. Sovereign Individual is a book written by two people, but both thematically very similar and both very influential. Peter Thiel wrote the preface or introduction or whatever they call it to the latest edition of The Sovereign Individual. Peter Thiel did that. J.D. Vance's owner. And Curtis Yarvin is like the lead philosopher for the Peter Thiels and J.D. Vances of the world and much of the rest of the tech bro community. They are convinced that this guy has the totally based solution on how things are figured out. And by the way, he's a brilliant guy. He's an enjoyable read. I don't think he's right about everything. Okay. And I think that he has fatal flaws in his thinking that lead him to conclusions that support the globalist agenda of the coming technocracy and miss the ability to actually create a sustainable society in a meaningful way. And they would say that, like, what they want, I think, is basically Singapore. They want essentially these sovereign city-states where they run them like businesses. And there might be something to it. I'm not like trying to knock the guy completely. But as I said yesterday, if you're a scientific materialist, if you're an atheist, if you're a nihilist, I don't know how anybody is just going to trust that. I mean, Curtis Yarvin is a scientific materialist, an atheist, a nihilist. His grandfather was a communist. He's Jewish, of course. And he believes that his grandfather, the communist, is heroic for defeating Hitler. So, I don't know, man, but that doesn't sound like the makings of the next great sovereign thinker. I don't know, man. I don't mean to tie him to that thing, but he believes simultaneously that his grandfather was a communist and that he fought to defeat Hitler. Hey, man, maybe it's all true. Okay. So, the goods. The global regime, what we have here is an illustration of how the game is played. The United States has no reason to outsource the manufacture of automobiles to Canada, okay? Or the acquisition, I don't know what you call it when it's lumber. You're not really manufacturing, but you're sort of producing, I guess. We don't need to export those things to Canada, and we never did. And we did that with the understanding that we would be the market to buy them back, which funds Canada's economy. And then there's, of course, the military protection thing and whatever other subsidies flow. Because Canada is a state of the regime. or was a state of the regime. And man, that's fascinating to me. And of course, this is how it works all over the place. These are these international, transnational deals that are being made. They're backed up through global banking money, philanthropist money, and government money, which are all essentially indistinguishable. Have you ever considered what it would be like to be like unbelievably rich, like Jeff Bezos or something? Money really, in a great way, doesn't matter anymore unless you're, I guess, trying to build one of these sovereign cities or something, and you want to have like Bezosburg. You are full on a servant and asset of the regime. It cannot be any other way, I do not believe. Unless, maybe there's some patriot contingency out there that has supported someone like Donald Trump into his wealth throughout his life. I guess you have to leave room for that possibility, of course. But it's also possible that Donald Trump had money from his family and made more money as himself and then joined this thing. But a lot of people think it was from a very young age, and I'm totally down with that, okay? I don't know how that came to be, and it would be an exception to what else I'm saying. And so I understand that, and I don't want to leave that unaddressed. But if you are clearly supporting the regime agenda, if you are doing a very important project that helps them out, and you are going to be a successful and competent public face of that project in order to sell it to people and to make people like it, to make people value it in their lives, well, that's how you get the big money, okay? And it's their money. They control the money. There's no way you can possibly spend it all for yourself. And if they wanted to destroy you, they could do it at any time. So what does it mean really then to be a Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or an Elon Musk or the rest of them? Why is it that so many of them are high school or college dropouts, right? Everybody's like, oh, they were just boy geniuses. Well, maybe. Or maybe they were totally compromised from a young age and just have obeyed for 30 or 40 years very successfully. It's totally possible. And then books are written about their genius and, oh, they're this astounding genius, They do this with all the companies. And some of the companies have made us like them a whole lot because they actually supply really products that we believe make our lives better. To some extent, that's inarguable, right? Or is it? Have they manipulated markets and monopolized industries so that the product we like, no one else can make a better version of that product that would ever reach the market that we might like better? Certainly that's happened. The other thing they do is take the product that we like and then add a bunch of things on it that they tell us, you know what, you're going to like this even better. And with every one of those things they add, they get something far more valuable than how much extra we like the thing they gave us. Are you excited about your memojis? Is that a fair trade-off for them confiscating all of your data forever? I would suggest not. But that's the world we live in. And we can't choose other options because there are no other options, because they've monopolized the industries and they've monopolized the supply chains for those industries. Okay? And then they control those supply chains and they make certain suppliers sell only to certain manufacturers. And that's how it goes. Total, complete manipulation. And either you play the game or you don't play the game. So, I think you got to think about those things and think about the fact that the globalists are subsidizing a foreign country at our expense in so many ways, while pretending that is a sovereign and independent nation. And that's no different than what they do in Ukraine or in Israel or in so many of the other proxy states. It is an abomination that we give Canada money. And, Trump is very clear. That border's not real. And some people have been doing digs on that. We don't have to go into it. I think I've been posting it in my Telegram, t.me/very reasonable. If you don't have Telegram, listeners, I don't know what you're doing, honestly. Stop Twitter. Stop Instagram. Definitely stop Facebook. At some point, we got to grow up out of these things. These things are useless. They literally steal your data while they attempt to demoralize you and make you feel as though you are isolated in your thinking from the rest of the world. And we're going to talk more about social media. In fact, maybe we'll just jump straight to that. I was gonna go through these articles, but I don't think that I'm really going to have the time unless I forego the other subject I want to discuss. I don't feel like foregoing that subject, so I want to just point this out briefly. This is in the Atlantic today yesterday, by Victoria Nuland's husband, Robert Kagan. And the headline is, Trump is facing a catastrophic defeat in Ukraine. If Ukraine falls, it will be hard to spin as anything but a debacle for the United States and for its president. Well, okay. First of all, that's preposterous. Nobody's going to blame Trump for that. It's not possible. They think that they have a media operation, a propaganda operation, competent enough to convince the American people that's true. Not possible. There's no way that this will look bad for Donald Trump at any point whatsoever. They already look as bad as possible. They can't shift that onto somebody else that everyone knows isn't responsible. And catastrophic defeat makes no sense. Oh, wow. It's so funny. I'm just looking at this again. Vice President-elect J.D. Vance once said that he doesn't care what happens to Ukraine. J.D. Vance in the first line. So they're going to use J.D. Vance to hammer this op home about how Trump will be catastrophically defeated? Very interesting. Why would J.D. Vance say he doesn't care what happens in Ukraine? Does Donald Trump say that? Strange. Wonder what J.D. Vance has going on. It's like he's kind of just serving some other agenda, or not really serving any agenda. He's just a television character who appears in different places at different times and was built as the next Barack Obama on the right and then got totally woken up in like 2021, right before his senatorial election funded by Peter Thiel. The other Peter Thiel candidate in that election, Blake Masters in Arizona, did not win somehow. Arizona's elections are fake. J.D. Vance doesn't talk a lot about fake elections. I'm not saying, I'm just saying it's weird. It's weird, right? Man, Snowcat Operator, you have been far too generous this week. Thank you so much, man. He says, it's high noon. And it is high noon. It's high noon all day long. All day long. Dave says, I need a larger megaphone because I see the entire board. Well, man, the larger megaphone thing will come or it won't. I had to get over that a long time ago because, you know, the way that comes for a lot of people is by chasing it. And if you chase it, then you got to do things. And if you do those things, then at the end of chasing it, once it works, it hasn't really worked because then you're restricted in all different ways based on the things that you were willing to do. And I already lived my life that way. You know, I say this from experience, and it's not to puff myself up in any way because I lived a life that way and it's bad. Okay. And I don't think it's moral. Like I look back on it with shame and regret. So I can't do that again. All right. I understand that, like, if you give up your authenticity in search of a bigger platform, like you have lost the one thing that's actually going to be valuable in the after times. And I'm unwilling to do that. And I don't want to grovel and I don't want to promote my show and tell, oh, you got to listen to my show. So we move on past that. Trump does not need to spin the Ukraine falling thing. There's absolutely no way these people could ever possibly pin this on Donald Trump. It is so silly. They're going to try. Wow. I think that Kagan, call me crazy, I think that Robert Kagan might be setting up a future linkage, a way to make it so that Azov lost in Ukraine and that Donald Trump was somehow the reason that Ukraine was lost. I don't know if that matches up perfectly. Just a thought that popped in my head. Don't pay it too much attention. Just something to look for later. Could totally be wrong. Okay, one more link that I just want to highlight really quickly. Man, we're getting into some really interesting stuff, and sometimes I feel a little bad on not touching on any of this more newsy stuff. It's important that we are, tracking Mike Johnson just to make sure he doesn't bring out his package once more. But this is from Politico yesterday. Johnson downplays debt cliff risks with one-track reconciliation push. So now we have a debt cliff. It's not a debt ceiling, it's a debt cliff. I have to see if they actually describe what they mean by that. We're going to get the debt limit handled well before the June deadline. We're not concerned about that. Yes, of course, the debt limit doesn't matter at all. It will never matter again. So that is an irrelevancy. The budget reconciliation process, who cares? Who cares? Hardliners are going to pair it with deep spending cuts. And you know who those hardliners are going to be. It's all going to be moronic. None of the spending cuts matter. The debt limit does not matter. The debt ceiling does not matter. If you owe $100,000 to the bank and you can't pay it, you're in big trouble with the bank or the mafia. If you owe $100 million to the bank or the mafia or the mafia have the problem, okay? So if you are at war against the bankers and against the global criminal enterprise and you win that war, you don't owe them anything. The debt's just gone. That's how it works, okay? You don't defeat someone in war and then pay them what you owe them. And by the way, we don't owe them that because the illegitimate government in this country has agreed to all that spending. The government's illegitimate. They're operating expressly against the will and consent of the American people. So none of this matters at all. And it will not ever be paid back. The debt will be eliminated as it should be. And that will be that. There's nothing to concern ourselves with about what's happening in an illegitimate legislature. And they will be illegitimate. I don't know how long the game's going to have to be played out, by the way. I cannot tell you that. So, I know people would be like, as soon as they pass some bill and Trump signs, they're like, well, what about that? Well, what about that? I also described the other day a way that there might be some legitimacy there somewhere. I don't believe that there is, but there might. Regardless, this should not matter to the American people, and not a single American person out there should ever think, oh, yeah, we have to pay this off. I guess I better help the government do that. Now, Trump mentioned paying off that debt. He said we're going to knock it out fast or something like that in the Mar-a-Lago press conference, as you just heard. A lot of that comes through drainage, okay? Other countries flooding money back into the United States because that money was ill-gotten. And there are going to be cover stories for what the drainage is. We've talked about these cover stories. And, of course, Twitter is one of those. I've talked about it many times. Gosh, man, there were some really interesting articles, but I'm certainly not going to get to them. Get to them all. Maybe later this week. I don't know. I really am enjoying the live streams, by the way, but I don't think it's realistic for me to do. I hate when my hair does that because I move my hat, I don't think it's realistic for me to do 2.5 hour live streams 5 days a week and expect people to get all the way through that. Okay. I just really don't think so. So, I also think maybe people listen more consistently to episodes when they have some breathing space. I'm just observing. I don't know. Like I said, it's very important to me that people who are paying to listen to the show, to support the show, I should say, are getting their money's worth. So I want to be here, but I don't know how anybody listens to this much content. I appreciate you if you do. Gosh, I would suspect that we're very much on the same page about a lot of things if that's the case. Or at least we would be by now. Would have to be. Okay. Okay. I'm making sure that that we're in a good place here. Okay. So I want to talk a bit about the supposed return of Twitter censorship, X, formerly Twitter censorship. Elon Musk is making it blatant, publicly, to an enormous audience that Twitter is going to be censored in a variety of ways, and he thinks it's good because he thinks he's protecting the quote-unquote public conversation. Now, the public conversation is largely just retardation. There's no reason to engage with most of the public conversation. It does not and cannot matter. So that's number one. Health of the public conversation is a subjective interpretation that communists have created. This conversation is a healthy one. This one is not. Now, what is the basis on which they decide a conversation is healthy and a conversation is unhealthy? Well, it's whether or not the things you're saying are supporting the regime or neutral or oppositional in a way that supports the controlled opposition dynamic. Okay? There are things that can sound oppositional and support the controlled opposition dynamic. The true opposition is stifled, and it has been the whole time. And people like me and many of you have been saying this to everyone we talk to for years. I have been saying that Twitter is a censored space, the intellectual kids table, now a retardopia, for 4 years. And it is retarded over there because they publicly bar entire portions of that conversation about the issues being discussed from the conversation. Formerly, they just did it by picking out various posts here and there and saying, you're censored. That's disinformation. We have fact checkers. Okay? Spreading disinformation and misinformation. That's hate speech. That's violent speech. That's racist speech. That's transphobic speech. They go through a whole list of things that allow them to censor you because you're saying the no-no words. And it was very direct. What they're doing now, what Elon Musk is doing now. Actually, let's say one thing first before that. For what Elon is doing. Okay? At the beginning, when he took over Twitter, he said that he wanted the extremes on the right and the extremes on the left to be mad at him. If that was the case, he would know he was doing a good job. Well, that's not true, okay? That is a retarded thing to say. If Elon Musk is serious about all the things he's saying, then Elon Musk is an evil retard, all right? If he is running an info op, and I suspect probably that he is, then he's fine. He's as brilliant as people say. I'm open to believing that. But if he is serious, then he's an evil retard. So first of all, the left-right axis that he's referring to, and I think I touched on this last week, the left-right axis that he's referring to is wrong in the first place, okay? So if you're making 10% of the people on the left-right axis as they have it laid out, angry at the middle, well, those are just people who most object to that quote-unquote centrist mainstream narrative. Now, the communists on the far left in that picture get it wrong because they're atheists, nihilists, and scientific materialists, which leads them to communism, fascism, Nazism, technocracy, all these other things, okay? That's leftism. There are some technocrats, people who are, extremely tech positive, maybe tech utopians, even who claim to be sovereign, and they might, but those people are also scientific materialists. And on the right of that spectrum, they say on that spectrum, the false spectrum, that the far right is like people who support Nazism and fascism and these other things, which is just far leftism. So that doesn't even make any sense. And also MAGA aren't those people. MAGA actually represents a majority belief on almost every issue in this country. We are actually the true centrists, but we are also more concerned with freedom than equality, want the constitutional republic, not this democracy, a different democracy potentially in the future. We can talk about that. Maybe there's ways to get there, but certainly not this one. We don't want the inversion of the Constitution. It's very simple. So that goes because the actual right is anti-government, and it's also called anarchy sometimes. People say there are leftist anarchists. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but hey, man. They make up all sorts of shit on the political spectrum to confuse people. Regardless, that wouldn't be a goal. It wouldn't be a goal because it's entirely possible that at the end of any extreme, at the end of any of one of these continuums, the solution does not have to be in the middle. The right answer might not be in the middle. The people on the very, very far right might be correct. And that might be the only answer that is correct. So everything else on the continuum is wrong relative to that. And sort of to then bar that extreme opinion or extreme belief or extreme viewpoint from the conversation bars the only right viewpoint from the conversation. And of course, that's exactly what they've done. So making the 10% on the left and the 10% on the right angry about the censorship policies is not a good goal. It's not a goal at all. It's utterly retarded. Okay? As an info op, maybe it's great. But Twitter has been censored the whole time. The platform has been censored the whole time. It never became the bastion for free speech. Elon Musk did not save free speech. Literally none of that happened. Okay? Some of us got our accounts back. When I got my account back, I was barred from the ad model, despite having over 5 million views many months. And that's not an enormous number. Most of the people Elon highlights are making tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars a month on Twitter. I've never made a dime on Twitter. But I was not even eligible to participate in the ad model. I was also not eligible for subscriptions. If people wanted to support me financially because of what I was doing on Twitter, which was highly effective and I was gathering plenty of followers and was destroying a lot of big accounts, they weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to give me money for what the thing that I was doing that they liked, because we say the no-no words. And I say a lot of the no-no words. I'm not going to say anything else. I was shadow banned. My posts were obviously manipulated in their reach. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, shadow banning is a version of that. But the other thing is, if my post only reaches a certain bubble or a certain silo, and I have no ability to reach beyond that, then I'm censored to everyone who doesn't agree with me, who doesn't agree with me in some capacity, that we are linked in some way in that bubble. That's just censorship. And then, not to mention, I was also suspended probably 10 or 12 times in the 15 months I was back. That's just censorship. Okay? Any manipulation of the conversation is censorship. Now, I do not know that there's a scenario where, outside of what is legitimately unlawful, and I'm talking about like threats of violence. Even that gets into hazy territory. I think it's just better not to make threats of violence in general so that we don't have to have that conversation. Like, I don't ever feel the need to make threats of violence. You know, I don't know why people do. It's especially on the internet. It's so stupid. Like, what are you going to say bad things to me? But, you know, like images of, let's try to say it in a nice way, or whatever, we'll just call it what it is. Child pornography images have to be taken offline, okay? Right? I mean, I think we all agree with that. Because if they're not, then that sort of thing proliferates. And it's already proliferated quite a lot. So that one's got to be one. And if there are other cases that are that extreme, I guess I'd be open to hearing them. I don't think, unless I'm missing something right now, heard a good one that I found convincing. But that's no good. Censoring for other reasons, censorship that doesn't include things that are that extreme is just censorship, manipulation, I should say. When it's not due to that stuff of the conversation is censorship. If the government is linked to Twitter, and the government has always been linked to Twitter, then Twitter is operating as an agent of the state while it censors. Is Twitter no longer part of the government? I have no reason to believe that. As I've said numerous times, Elon became the face of a government-linked platform that the regime has used for years to overthrow governments, manipulate financial markets, become enormously wealthy, coerce society to go along with their agenda, and who knows how much, however much else they did. And there was an extraordinary child pornography and child trafficking thing happening behind the scenes at Twitter in the direct messages, and we've heard nothing about that, of course. So what is Elon Musk doing now? Well, now he is, and let's maybe take Elon out of this, okay? Like, it's not about I love Elon, I don't love Elon. Let's just talk about what's happening, because he's saying what's happening. And it could be that Linda Yaccarino is executing all of these plans and that Elon is publicly supporting them so that all of these people rug themselves and that Elon rugs himself and Twitter at the same time. All right? He's attracting people to this thing, and this thing happens to be terrible. Is Elon doing that for a good reason based on who he's attracting to that thing? Maybe. Is Elon exposing what the system is like in a crucial time so that we can know what censorship actually looks like and that Twitter is not actually a safe place for the public conversation? Maybe. And those things might be really important, okay? And again, I'm mostly Elon positive, but anything is possible. And we have to consider these possibilities when we encounter them. So it's possible that Linda Yaccarino is doing all this, but they're saying that that the conversation is the incentive in the Twitter conversation is toward unregretted user minutes or user seconds. I think he said it both ways, which means we're here to capture your attention fully. But while you're on the app, we don't want you to become unhappy with being on the app. Okay? That is only the capture of attention and absolutely nothing else. They've talked about this stuff for years. These aren't new ideas. He's saying that we want to capture your attention and keep your attention by never making you unhappy. So we are going to algorithmically limit the reach of content that we suspect might make other people unhappy, whether it's true or not, whether it's relevant or not. If it makes them unhappy, if it's going to produce a negative experience, regretted user seconds, then its reach is going to be limited. And then we have, people were going crazy over this over the weekend. I don't know how real it is in terms of the people checking their own scores, but they're introducing like a social credit score based on your rate of negative posts. Like, how negative is your content overall? That's what limits your reach, a social credit score. And the social media apps have always been a nice runway to the social credit score. I lived in Hollywood and I knew a lot of these women. And so, people are going to do what they do. And I was a lot more non-judgmental about these things, although I would call them out online as softcore pornography and prostitution all the time, in public, right in their faces, because they know what they're doing. I know what they're doing. Other people should know because it was just a dishonest thing. But anyway, aside from that, the Instagram modeling and stuff is for likes and for followers, and they'll buy followers, and they'll present a certain lifestyle, which requires doing certain things to have the objects through which you can present a certain lifestyle so that you're able to do more things to get more stuff. And the thing just continues to roll if you are good at that hustle. All right. It's prostitution. Judge it for yourself. But the point is that the entire thing was about acquiring social credit through likes, creating images and content that would make people like it more, that would make people share it more. All right. That's how social media works. I worked in social media management for celebrities and brands. And the same, of course, is true in different ways for actors taking on roles of themselves on social media that do not represent at all who they are in real life. And people believe it, and then bots support them, and then they become vessels for political messaging. But so the social credit scores have already existed. The social credit scores have existed for a long time. And, if you were speaking out in 2020, you knew what it felt like to see your social credit score drop to zero. Especially if you're like me and had an okay one and ended up with 10% of his friends. If you say things that are going to upset the balance in the party of false decorum, your social credit score is going to be reduced. That's what it means to strip you of your reputation. Okay. And so now they are creating a system explicitly centered around social credit score. And you have to keep your social credit score up so that other people can see the things you're saying, even if they want to see the things you're saying or would want to see the things you're saying. The machine decides, no. That's not the kind of thing that people want to see based on their own interests. That is exactly the techno dystopia that we were told China had brought into being in China. And we were told that is the thing to fear, were we not? Now, people don't fear it anymore because Elon Musk is funny, and on television, he appears to be friends with Donald Trump. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. There is no friendly kind of censorship. And by the way, there's no principled kind of not standing up against censorship. Like, people are like, yeah, okay, well, the Groypers, they're scumbags. Like, all right, maybe they are. I don't know. I don't pay attention to them. I mean, who cares? Okay. If they're scumbags, other people hopefully won't pay attention to them. Being scumbags doesn't get you censored by the government. Okay. And it shouldn't get you censored on a platform that purports to be a free speech platform. Okay. If other people don't like the content, they'll ignore the content. Turns out other people do like that content. And if they like it for bad reasons, okay. If it's bots liking that content and pushing it to the fore, well, just eliminate the bots. And Elon has said he's going to do that many times, but he hasn't done it. And he still talks about how many bots there are. So either Elon doesn't know what's going on at Twitter, he's not running Twitter, or he's put people in Twitter to make Twitter very bad, technologically better, building it to where he needs to be, but still with all the problems of before. So that eventually he can say, I can see these problems were not solved. Now they will be solved. And we can be hopeful that that's one of the potential good outcomes. So this is a post response from Elon today. And I would suggest to people, if you are on Telegram, which you should be, unless you're retarded and want to remain retarded forever. And I don't care if you follow me or not, just get to a better tech platform to consume information where smarter people are, who are barred from other conversations. This is Liz Boree. Liv. Who cares? I mean, who the hell is this? The sadism on this platform and the internet in general is appalling. I have multiple dear friends in Topanga whose houses are burning down as we speak, and I'm being verbally abused for what exactly? My tweet was an apolitical expression of my sadness, nothing more. And yet I'm currently getting these kinds of responses. I'm not even a Democrat, LOL. A good reminder that conservative sadists are just as bad, if not worse, than liberal sadists, I suppose. Now, no, that's probably not true. Or they're just not conservatives. There's a lot of people who call themselves conservatives who are actually communists. All of Con Inc. are leftists, okay? They're neocons and they're Zionists. The regime's the regime. It just is what it is, okay? They're not on the right just because they say they're conservative and talk about Austrian economics. And if they're scientific materialists, another almost sure thing that they're going to be on the left, or they're going to be the kind of people on the right who are going to, probably destroy society, thinking that they're saving the world the whole time. And it's funny. I kind of ran through this yesterday with a Bitcoin maxi friend. Some of this, and or maybe I talked about it yesterday. I don't need to bring it up again. Okay, but there's a belief system underlying these things, and if you are on the side of the bankers, spiritually and intellectually, it doesn't matter that you say you're adopting a technology that's fighting them, okay? Because you are ultimately part of the same problem, right? It is what it is. The currency, and Bitcoin is many things more than currency, is a tool. A tool can be used by good people. A tool can be used by evil people. And it's a very hard tool to seize control of, which is a great thing about Bitcoin. But if that tool that is going to become part of everybody's life can be exploited, it will be exploited. And if it is in control of people who we don't think are the evil people because we're looking at the dynamics wrong, but are actually just the scientific materialists, the globalists, the communists, the Zionists, the regime, the bankers that are being fought. And maybe there are some Zionists out there that we're not actually fighting and fine. If you are, my point is, I got sidetracked on the Zionist thing. I try to be sensitive about these things because it really is a fine line that you have to walk to talk about these things seriously and not in the way that like the pro-Nazi op people do. Okay. There are Jews who don't believe in Zionism. They're anti-Zionist Jews. In fact, they believe that Zionism is a total inversion of their belief system. And so those people should be listened to about Zionism, should they not? Okay. There are also probably some Christian Zionists who are just confused. And the point's not to attack people, all right? But the belief system is the belief system. And the currency is the tool. The currency in the hands of evil people, or whatever the tool is. I should have said the tool, not the currency. In the hands of evil people cannot be a good thing. And we see evil as the visible evil and not as its sources, all right? Because it's easy to deny that the sources of that evil exist in people who we haven't detected that evil in. Well, if you can detect the source of evil in that person, it's then very dangerous to empower a great many of those people with by giving them a very powerful tool or making the tool that they possess more powerful. So again, I'm not knocking Bitcoin. I'm still a software maxi. Okay. Because I think that is a way to defeat the regime and a necessary way, perhaps. Not fully convinced. Again, I'm not making any firm anything, certainly not for the next 12 days. I'm very pro-Bitcoin. I'm still very pro-Bitcoin. But the idea that there shouldn't be any skepticism about how the tool is being used or evolving is crazy to me. Like we can ask questions about everything but that. It's good to ask questions about everything but that. Your scientific material is so you don't believe in God, but there's no reason ever to question Bitcoin. I don't know how anybody can possess that thought. That's crazy to me. And it's, it always turns out that the people who possess those thoughts don't think about society, don't think about religion, don't think about morality, don't think about the future and what's actually to come. It's just a utopian vision that once we have this, well, surely utopia will arrive after that. Well, no, it matters how the tool is actually used and who it's used by and what their goals are. It has to be that. Back to this. It is easy for someone to spin up hundreds or thousands of bot accounts and just troll for attention. Well, sure, it is. It's easy for entire bot armies to support influencers who are rolling out a regime narrative, a uniparty narrative on the right or the left. They have millions and millions of followers. Look how popular this person is. The things they say must be important, right? Everybody at the Daily Weimar, very popular. People at the Blaze, very popular. Kurt Schlichter's got 400,000 followers on Twitter. Maybe he's got 500,000 by now. Nobody engages with him. He tried a podcast out. Nobody listened to it. It was an embarrassing joke. He writes based in red-pilled shit for Town Hall, a fully possessed outlet. It's a joke. What got him that popularity? No one engages with his content, okay? And he's been around forever and had that following the whole time. So it means nobody's actually paying attention to him, but he still looks like a prominent person that plays a key role in supporting Ron DeSantis. Okay, so hundreds of thousands of bots. They can support any view they want by making it look really, really popular and then disincentivizing any opposition to it. Okay? Beyonce is wonderful. I used to make fun of Beyonce on Instagram in Los Angeles during the feminist movement and the BLM movement. People got so angry because they were convinced that everybody has to support Beyonce. It's like the only people who don't support Beyonce are racists and misogynists. What? How about just having ears or not liking communism? Or not being willing to go along on trends with evil retards? Those are good reasons not to like Beyonce. But no. Cultural disincentives. If you don't like Beyonce, well, then you're a bad person. And these beliefs can be formed around anything by the machine whenever it wants, and it doesn't even require human input. There's no reason to believe that it does. I'm not saying it never does, by the way. I'm just saying there's no reason to believe that it is a necessary component. Unfortunately, I think the only solution is limiting replies to verified users or those you follow, or just thoroughly ignore unverified craziness. Well, those aren't the only ways to handle these problems. I handle people saying mean things to me just fine. I exact massive punishment on each and every one of them. That's the solution, okay? Or deal with it. I mean, like the unverified thing, he mentions it twice here. He is using this woman's self-victimization over posts about the California fires to promote the idea that people should switch their Twitter experience so they're only interacting with people who pay for Twitter. Well, if you don't want to pay for Twitter because you can't afford it, or you don't want to spend the money on that thing, or you don't want to support Elon Musk or whatever, you just don't think you need it, then you are barred once again from the public conversation. It doesn't sound like censorship, does it? No, everybody made a choice. So you got the social credit score, and you have the positivity algorithm, and then you have the interactions with only verified users, all as brand new contours of the Twitter experience. Does that make anybody feel good about the free speech platform? Doesn't make me feel good about it. Makes me worry about everything these people are doing. And I already was worried, of course, about these things. I mean, I've said for a long time, well, by the way, first, that I think Meghan Markle's a double agent meant to tell the story of the public dismantling of the British monarchy. And I think that that's starting to look very smart because I said it 4 years ago. But I've been saying for a long time as well that I believe Elon Musk is intentionally making all of the technocratic agenda look stupid on purpose. Okay? Like the climate change people now hate Elon Musk. The whole thing looks stupid. The space people, Elon Musk is making them buy in as hard as they can on all the space bullshit. And ultimately, they're going to look very stupid. We're not going to Mars in 2 years. And of course, who believes that? Scientific materialists who think that the only way we're going to save humanity, the only way humanity has a future is by getting out into that deep, black, infinite void and establishing ourselves on a lifeless planet for whatever reason. And these people are supposed to be taken seriously, right? You cannot be taken seriously if you don't believe in outer space and you don't believe that we've explored our outer space and you don't believe that that is ultimately our salvation. Outer space. These people think they're smart because the science is on their side. And then they say, well, it's just the math, man. What, are you going to dispute the numbers? Well, yeah. How do they get those numbers? Can you tell me? Oh, you don't know how? Oh, the way that they did it doesn't make any sense? And no one's actually traveled the distance that you're talking about? Well, then how do you believe the numbers? Because they made them up. And they're telling you they made them up. Mind-blowing, man. It really is mind-blowing. And they don't see it, which is crazy. And, I get it. I used to be one of them. I didn't see it. I thought religious people were nuts. What are you talking about? This is the science. This is the best knowledge we have. And you are disputing it besides not knowing what you're talking about, right? And I'm just going to pause for a second, take a drink of water. And I'm also going to entertain you with this very annoying, just saying it, but very funny video, kind of meme, I guess, that I saw this morning. Here we are. So I'm sorry to your ears, and I'm sorry to those of you who are having the audio only experience sometime in the future. But yeah, I mean, and that's how you do it too. I'm not saying I ascribe to every statement made in that video, okay? But that video is very funny, very annoying, very aggressive, and the sort of thing that these people don't want to see because it confronts them with their own total unseriousness. And that's what they don't want to be confronted with. When you're making an appeal to authority as though it is your knowledge, the last thing you want to do is have someone make you look obviously, especially to others, as totally unserious. So Sorry, but that's what you got to do. And I think that video does it pretty well. So it basically, for those of you listening, it just talks about how moronic the spaceman beliefs are and the sorts of people that believe in them. And always people get triggered on this stuff because they're like, oh, I'm a scientist. Okay, well, do you understand why science can't be the top thing? Like, it's okay if there's good science out there. And I think that maybe the better way to think about that is innovation, all right? Like, we don't need to do science as a thing where we're going to suddenly find all the deep, dark truths of the world. How about focusing on innovation and figuring out what we need and making that, rather than trying to figure out how you might be able to poison 300 million people at a time, for instance. Oh, man, it's just science. Yeah, sure. Sure it is. The scientific materialism, placing science and the material world above the spiritual world and above God, is just evil. Okay? It's the basis of evil. I don't need to make that argument. I made it kind of yesterday. And I do want to move on as time is marching forward. Here's what I want to talk about. Okay. So we've had now this week a story about Dana White joining the board of directors at Facebook Meta. And he is a Trump friend. I mentioned, I think, on this show, but maybe not, that he is also client and sometime business partner of Ari Emanuel, who runs the talent agency WME. And of course, they have a million other things that they're involved, like controlling an entire industry, basically. And he was the brother of Rahm Emanuel, who is the chief of staff of Barack Obama and the ambassador to Japan, under the fake administration of Joe Biden. And they have a brother who's one of those transhumanists who thinks that people become worthless at old age. And so for the good of everyone should die as they must at 75. Like, you hit 75, that's your limit, now you're dead. So I have deep distrust for that entire chain of things. I don't know the man. I don't know what's in his heart. I don't know what's going on in the background. I cannot possibly know any of those things. But everything that's up in the foreground is bad. So Dana White he's on the board of directors of Facebook Meta now, as though they are just a normal private company being run by their board of directors. All of this is very likely a total sham. Maybe Dana White is just gathering information. So be it, whatever it is. Mark Zuckerberg looks like he was submitted years ago by Donald Trump. And we can talk about that. We can take that into our thinking. I'm not here to deny that argument. But now what they are doing is removing all of their censorship, quote unquote, removing it. This is just from Badlands Media today. And, Badlands is basically taking stories from various articles and putting them in very brief form on the website. So you just get the short version. And if you want to dig, the links are always here at the bottom, okay? Telling you what's being summarized. So the International Fact-Checking Network has called an emergency meeting of its members after Meta announced plans to end its third-party fact-checking partnerships in the U.S., replacing them with a crowdsourced monetary system akin to X's community notes. So now, 2 of the legacy tech platforms are going to have the same system that does the censorship. Now, it's not the platform that's censoring, and it's not their partner fact checkers like Pointer or, what were some of the other ones? Not leading stories. I don't need to remember them. Whatever. We'll move on. People know who the fact-checking organizations were. And of course, we have like things like Trusted News Initiative and all of their partners in making sure to keep a healthy conversation in the information space and limit the spread of disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation. We've heard it countless times. So they're moving away from that model. It's not going to be the platform doing the censorship because it's not going to be their partners submitting the fact checks. It's not going to be them putting the notes on the posts. No, it's going to be you. We're going to have community notes. And so this is people. It's just people. One person disagrees with your post and they have a disputation of it. And so they put up a community note. And then if some other person agrees with that or some other person disputes it, there will be some sort of little battle between accounts until the truth, quote unquote, comes out. And then that truth goes under your post as a community note. And we are supposed to believe that Twitter is a free speech space that is geared toward the acquisition of truth. And that community notes is being run by people who care about the truth. That might be true in some cases, but it does not have to be true. It doesn't even have to be people, okay? You think they can't run AIs to do the community notes thing? Community notes is just the next wave of censorship. That's all it is. And so there was a meme going around today with like Lisa Simpson or something, where they were saying, these changes to social media would have never happened if Kamala had won. This is like worrying about Canada's votes, okay? The elections are fake. There was no circumstance where Kamala was going to have won because elections are fake. They would not have been able to sell it to the nation, first and foremost. But the election itself was not real. Okay, so there's no scenario where Kamala would have won and she would have made the censorship go up, whereas now the censorship is stopping. The fact checking on Facebook is stopping. Now it's the notes feature, and everybody knows that the notes feature is the best source of truth because every time some liberal gets dunked on the community by community notes, well, that's what makes them cry their liberal tears. Oh, you see, this got community noted, slammed them. And those things go viral, making it seem like the notes feature is something that we can trust. But it's not something we can trust. It's not even something that we know is real. And AI could absolutely do that and just supply the AI, what the machine belief in dispute of the user's post. So what do we have? We just have a new wave of censorship. Okay, censorship didn't go away. Fact-checking didn't go away. They just changed the method. And we're cheering it. And certainly many Con Inc. influencers are cheering it because they grovel before Elon Musk. And it's pathetic and embarrassing. But they want the attention. They want the interaction because they're trying to score points and win Twitter. They want the social credit points. They want to engage in the monetization model. They want to get rich by winning Twitter. And their method is groveling to Elon as hard as possible and engaging fully in the clickbait stories of the fake news within the false reality. That is these people's mission. So they are cheering this on because they grovel before Elon and they want interaction with Elon and they want to preserve the notion that Twitter is actually a free and open free speech platform where the most important conversation is being held and the smartest people are participating. And Elon Musk says that all the time. Twitter is not the smartest group of people. Most of those people are retarded about very, very significant things. And we saw that throughout COVID. We've seen it ever since. Not virtually one of them bothered saying that Joe Biden was a fake and illegitimate president. They just went along and groveled. And because the enforcement of the crowd and the environment kept them having to repeat that notion, they actually formed their other thoughts through the idea that Joe Biden was a real legitimate president, which makes them wrong about an untold number of things necessarily, because they have a foundational belief that's wrong. So every belief that is supported by that foundation is going to be negatively affected by that foundational mistake. That doesn't make you the smartest person. That doesn't make that the smartest public conversation. It's the intellectual kids table. Okay. And now they are cheering it on as a free speech platform, and they are accepting this new version of fact checking because Elon says it's good. And this is what's going to keep the public conversation healthy, because, they want to find a balance. They support free speech, but they don't want to see a bunch of the stuff. They don't want to get harassed. They don't want to get embarrassed in their own channels. They don't want to be exposed for who they actually are. And I experience that often during the Ron DeSantis op. You can tell that these people are easily embarrassed when the parts of their false identity are chipped away. I get it. I used to have false identity features as well. I might still have some, and hopefully they will. I will become a better person someday, and maybe somebody will find and exploit those, and all good. Either I will learn from being wrong about something, or I will absolutely turn it around on them and and eviscerate them, not violently. Okay. What else? Okay. So with all that in mind, we have a censored information space, this legacy information space, now fully censored, even on Twitter. Everybody can see it. All right. We are coming to a very important moment in time, an inflection point. And it doesn't have anything to do with the fake election or the fake tabulation of the certified electoral votes the other day. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not we see a fake inauguration. Okay. And, if Trump wants to have a big ceremony and show that to the nation, I'm all good with it, but we don't need to pretend it's necessary. Okay. He's having a big arena party on the night before, on the 19th. And I believe on the 20th or 21st, the quote unquote TikTok ban will go into effect that Congress passed, not that Trump did in 2020, but that Congress passed last year. These are major events coinciding. The TikTok thing is going to be interesting. I really think that's going to be interesting because I think that TikTok is under the same situation, as I said before, as Twitter. Jeff Yass has something like $20 billion in TikTok, and he also has an enormous sum in DJT. How's that work? DJT was initially TMTG, which was like an umbrella company, a SPAC, and they had various media and tech properties underneath that banner. Could they be holding TikTok under that banner? I suspect that's possible. I don't know if that's possible. Don't make your investment decisions on my words, but possible. So there's a big thing happening in information with TikTok on that day. We're seeing major changes in terms of the censorship methods on the legacy social media platforms, making it look like they are pro-free speech. And the censorship that is happening is not actually them doing it. It's their algorithms, and it's the actual users of the platform who are censoring these people, and they're not being censored. It's not freedom of speech that they're lacking. It's only freedom of reach. They can say all the things they want to say to nobody. They are totally welcome to do that. That's freedom of speech. So with that in mind, there are other changes coming. And I was immediately piqued in my interest about this the other day. This is uncensored AI without the censorship. And so you can sign up for their beta, There is some sort of wait list. There are people using this AI. And I saw a post, supposedly from this AI, I believe it is, that corrected someone about al-Baghdadi and said, no, that guy is actually an Israeli intelligence asset named, I think it was Elliot Shimon. Okay, and actually let's ask Perplexity and let's see what this AI tells us. Maybe we'll just fact check this to make sure. Was al-Baghdadi, I think I spelled that right. Might have misplaced the H. Actually named Elliot Shimon. No. The claim is a conspiracy theory that has been debunked, they say. The conspiracy theory suggested that al-Baghdadi was a Jewish Mossad agent named Elliot Shimon, or Shimon Elliot, is false and has no credible evidence to support it. Edward Snowden, who was falsely cited as the source of the claim, has called it a hoax. Okay, well, maybe it is a hoax. And if that came from this AI and it's a hoax, that would be very bad. I have not looked into this claim. Maybe one of you has. If you have, please let me know what it is you have found, because I certainly do not trust the machine on that claim. But I found that that answer to be surprising and interesting because I had never heard that claim before. Okay, so I was like, okay, well, I got to check out what uncensored AI is. And so here we are, AI without the censorship. Sign up for the thing if you want. Oh, damn. What does America First mean? It's answering its own question. Then we'll get to the other part. America First is a political slogan and movement that emphasizes prioritizing the interests of the United States above those of other nations without showing preference for any specific country. So it is clearly trying to immediately appeal to MAGA and to America First. Now, so is this coming from the good side or is this coming from the bad side, looking to sweep people up into an AI that they will trust because it says it's uncensored and then end up believing and consuming a lot of totally false information? It's totally possible. You can't ignore it. Or is it coming from the good guys and it actually is uncensored? So it's coming, it's fully launched on January 20th, 2025. Now, if that doesn't catch your eye, that an uncensored AI could be emerging on January 20th, 2025, are you fully there? That could potentially be a big deal. And it turns out also, actually, you know what? I think I can find it right here. Oh, my window just closed. Rats foiled again. So, man, Gab had a notice up the other day. Gab has the next wave of their AI launching very soon. I got, I think, an email about it. Maybe I can find the email. And then Elon Musk's Grok is launching Grok 3 within the next few weeks as well. It said 3 to 4 weeks yesterday when I searched. Could it be 12 days? Could it be right after that? Well, maybe. And I think that the timing on these things is not at all random. I think the timing of these things is very clear. It all meets around this same day. Now, I don't know if one of these, so Gab has had an AI for a long time, and Grok has had an AI for a long time. Elon Musk advertises his as free speech, and it's got incredible tech, and it's very, very advanced. Gab's is less advanced, and it's less high tech, at least in the user experience, but it is more uncensored. So I thought, could Grok be being built to be the basis for an uncensored AI. Grok is totally censored, as is being admitted now. It is trained on the intellectual kids table and the mainstream media. Okay? So it's probably better than the ones like ChatGPT that are trained only at the intellectual kids table. But, sorry, I read a comment in the chat and totally lost my train of thought. So it reads, so it's better, right, that Grok is taking in stuff from the quote unquote public conversation rather than just the mainstream media. But it's not the truth. It's not good enough, right? Entire parts of the conversation are barred from the mainstream media. Entire parts of the conversation are barred from social media. And by the way, Linda Yaccarino is out in Las Vegas for the Consumer Electronics CES. I think it's Consumer Electronics. I don't know what the S is. Forgetting it. It's something similar to conference, but. And she's talking about Twitter, about censorship on Twitter and in the legacy media and elsewhere. And I listened to some of the comments. It was a little hard to understand what she was saying because it was a video taken from the environment there. But they are thinking about this. Twitter is absolutely censored. So Grok is censored in the same ways. And people think that Grok is really amazing because it's so based and it'll answer certain questions. Fine. Okay? The other ones can be led into that as well. And maybe the technology is better. I'm not the one to say because I don't use them a hell of a lot. I use Perplexity regularly as a jumping off point in searches, and I argue with it. But I don't go deep into its potentials and examine the technology and whatever else. Now, none of these platforms are being produced by people that we can quote unquote trust, and shouldn't trust anybody. But there's no reason to believe that they are uncensored. Gab has at least been welcoming of all viewpoints for as long as Gab has existed. And that's like Torba's number one thing. And it looks an awful lot like Facebook to me, and it functions an awful lot like Facebook, though I haven't been on Facebook in probably 7 or 8 years. Similar functionalities, and they're building out AI. They've got an image generator, and they don't have, I think, enormous budgets to be able to do all these things, but they are user-funded among, I'm sure, other funding sources, and have remained committed to free speech, certainly seems. And so they have an AI coming out, Grok has an AI coming out, and then we have uncensored AI. Now, I don't know that any of these AIs will be effective and uncensored. But what I do know is that if people are using an AI that all of a sudden does not have any of the restrictions of legacy media, legacy social media, X formerly Twitter, including Grok, and the government, then that is a whole different information environment. That is capable of producing another reality. And there are two realities, as I've been describing for a long time. And I think we talked about Sam Altman from OpenAI and this post from the other day. And OpenAI has ChatGPT. So again, take this into account. This is Sam Altman, their CEO, I think. I always wanted to write a 6-word story. Here it is. Near the singularity, unclear which side. Okay? So we're having a convergence of these two realities. And one of those realities will proceed forward based on the cumulative belief of those who choose that reality. Both realities will move forward on that basis. Who believes in which one? Which one captures the belief of all the people, of a critical mass of people? I don't know what that number is. Maybe it's 85%, something. So the other one just disappears totally. There's no social incentive possible to bring that other reality back into being. And then that reality just ends. And people can see through the incentive and punishment structure and, you know, what has been done to them and what has been done in their name. And then most of those people will respond in rejecting all of that. And hopefully many of them will immediately begin seeking out positive ways to contribute to the other thing. That's what happened to me. That's the process I went through. I think it's happened to a lot of people. And I call those people, including myself, I was at one time a redeemable communist, and now I am working to redeem myself from that. By the way, there's going to be a whole lot of redeemable neocons out there too. So, being like, oh, you voted for the left. Well, yeah, you voted for George W. Bush and John McCain, and Mitt Romney, and Ted Cruz in the 2016 primary. There's plenty of people out there like that, right? It's not a contest. The point is making the move toward the positive thing, because that's what ushers in the American Renaissance. But if there is a new information ecosystem that is actually uncensored, and the technology has been built in whatever way it's been built, and the unleashing of this thing is happening, and it certainly seems to be, maybe TikTok convergence, maybe Twitter convergence, although I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think it's possible it just goes away because it's so useless. I mean, I live my life without it. I see posts from it, and sometimes those have value. I'm not saying there's no value there whatsoever. But in terms of being your understanding of what the world is, it is a terrible, terrible, awful place to do that. And it's being presented as the best possible place to do that. Any information ecosystem that is censored is necessarily headed in the direction of total retardation. Okay? There's no other way around it. You are missing part of the conversation. You are missing part of the conversation around an issue, which means there are other viewpoints that you have not accounted for whatsoever. And relative to those viewpoints, you have no way of knowing that you're actually right. And that is a terrible, terrible problem for any ecosystem like that. And people need to recognize that, because Twitter is actually censored. But what if there is an uncensored option that comes into being, and I don't want to date fag, but in 12 days? How does the regime react to that? Well, I'd suggest that they would react by burning cities down. I would suggest that they would react to that with rampant acts of unexplainable violence that is made to look like something explainable that gets us to go along with what the regime wants. I don't know how many attacks there are going to be. I said yesterday, I suspect that the Biden offshore barrier thing, who knows what that's covering? Are we being defended off those shores right now? And are those areas all just being claimed as necessary for our defense? I don't know. The drilling thing's preposterous. That would never stay, but maybe there's a reason to have it up for 12 days. So if we have the intellectual kids table reality, is that my hair? Is that a shadow? That's my hair. That looks so silly. It still looks silly. I'm screwed. I'm honestly screwed. What are you going to do? If you have the reality that is generated by the central narrative and maintained by censored social media platforms that support the central narrative, that exist to support the central narrative, and to demoralize dissenters, to shame dissenters, to punish dissenters in whatever way will make them stop dissenting or lose their reputation and access entirely. That's one side. And that side is clearly being presented. It's clearly being presented. And then if there's another side, another information ecosystem where people are able to interact in all of the same ways, except it's not censored, that side of things is going to wreck the other side. Okay? Indisputably destroy. There's no way the other side has any chance. That thing has to be brought into being if that's the way. And now, I know that I'm talking about, I just made it sound like I'm talking about conjuring something up. And, take it as you will. The technology already exists, okay? It's a matter of seizing it, the tool, okay? Because it's not a god. The AI is their false god of the false reality, all right? But this thing's not God. This is a tool by which you wake people up from that evil and bring them in the direction of truth and eventually in the direction of God. So, is it ungodly to use that tool? I don't think it is. That tool would be primarily geared toward censorship, if not, or toward truth, sorry. If not fully in that way, then certainly relative to the alternative, which I think is probably good. Not always, but probably. And so along this line of thinking, actually, let me pause for a second, because I want to say one more thing first. So these two sides, if the other side actually emerges in an accessible way, and Donald Trump has been making deals with Tim Cook, I was trying to think of his name, from Apple, protecting his business in places around the world because that's an American business, and Donald Trump wants that American business to keep going. What's the trade-off there? Is Truth Social going to get kicked off of the Apple App Store? Don't think so. Rumble? Nah. Telegram? Mm-mm. TikTok won't. And an uncensored AI app would not either. Why has Gab been left off of all these app stores, by the way? Gab is exceptional, and something is happening there in the background. And I've been saying for years that Gab is like a dark horse thing, and I still use it from time to time and mess with their AI from time to time because I really, really do think there's something there. And of course, it was hit like 4chan and 8chan, and with all sorts of Fed posting to make it look like everyone on there was a psychopath. And it was largely effective. That really hurt them bad. And maybe they're fine in their position. Sometimes it's kind of better to like remain just out of sight for a long time. And in some ways, I've been doing that. I think that they are a dark horse candidate. But no matter what it is, if there's an uncensored AI on that side, then the game has been changed. And speaking of 4chan and 8chan, what if there was an AI that was trained on the Q research boards? I don't know if you've ever been over there, but the amount of research over there is more than any human could produce or consume in a lifetime, and maybe many lifetimes. Okay, there's no way for a person, I don't believe, and someone can correct me. I mean, maybe someone's actually gotten through it. I can't imagine. But the only way to actually analyze all that in a holistic fashion would be through a properly trained AI. And if an uncensored AI was available with training from the Q research boards and from who knows how many channels, maybe from Truth Social, maybe from different people's Substacks, maybe from Telegram posts, public Telegram posts. I don't know what it's being trained on. I'm saying if you are able to introduce all the body of information and knowledge that is being barred from the legacy media platforms and the legacy social media platforms by government or by globalists or by whoever, that is a total game changer. It just really is. Because people would begin finding out things that they never could have possibly believed. We make fun a lot of normies and stuff, and it's because most of them are scientific materialists, and if not all of them. And they are committed to the party of false decorum. They want to be taken seriously by their fellow people who don't know anything, but are all indoctrinated in some vein of the regime ideology. They might have gone all the way through college. We're talking about doctors, right? Prominent people are still in the party of false decorum and susceptible to the incentive and punishment structure, which means even when they doubt the slogans from the central narrative, they will still repeat them because the maintenance of their reputation requires it. Okay? That thing has to be blown apart. And it will be when people realize that there's this whole other body of knowledge that they have not had access to. All of a sudden, they are going to have access to that body of knowledge, and it's going to make all those people look very, very stupid. Now, I am not promising you that that's coming in 12 days, and I'm not promising you that it's coming in 3 to 4 weeks, but that is the moment that's being anticipated. Two realities exist, layered, one, a false one, layered on top of reality prime. Some people live believing that the false reality is fully representative of their world, even though it's incoherent, and they know it's not representative, and they know who's telling them all those things, and they know those people are evil. They are still fully committed to the false reality because they don't understand that there's a way back to the other one, and they don't understand how they would live in the other. Okay? Eventually, it becomes totally unavoidable. Two realities are converging. Who's robbing that train, right? One Western gang riding down one side of the canyon, another Western gang riding down the other side of the canyon. The train is speeding through on the tracks in the canyon. And one of those gangs, or good guys or whoever they are, right? One of those gangs is going to rob that train or control that train. Maybe they're going to save the train, right? One of those gangs is going to rob that train, and the other gang is going to be shot dead trying to rob that train. And there's only going to be one thing left. And I said the other day, which is a good caveat, that maybe some of them will escape. They're not going to all, and we're not talking about killing here ultimately. We're talking about a defeat in a narrative sense that is unrecoverable. And that's what it'll be. And so that's the singularity they're worrying about. What if we have not captured the public belief the way we believe we have? And these people lie to themselves all the time. They have told the world that their ideas share majority opinion just down the line. And they've done it for decades. And they believe it. And they believe elections are real because they have to believe elections are real. So they believe that the countries, that the collective belief of the countries exists as the elections show it to exist. And it doesn't. Okay? They believe that they have captured the public belief to a level required for the public to side with them when this moment occurs. But they have not. And the guarantee, or I should say the emergence of a truly uncensored AI and truly uncensored social media that is adopted by a great many people, it's game over. And that's what the neocons and Con Inc. and all those awful DeSantis, Simpson, the rest of them, that's what they have been advertising Twitter to be for the last 2+ years now. That uncensored platform. This is the way we defeat them. Oh, look at this. We won your election by influencing. DC Drano's been out there. Oh, we're coming on a golden age because there's this legion of influencers backing up Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. No, man, that's not it at all. In fact, you guys have been part of the problem the entire time. Okay? It's not about waking up the normies. There are two things, and they're not fighting the thing. They're participating in the thing. So eventually there will be this moment, only one side will emerge, and that will be that. And then we head off in the other direction. I'm not saying it's immediate utopia. People will keep fighting back as they have for millennia. And they will come back to more prominence, more power as people begin to compromise so that they can get ahead in the material world. So I'm not saying it's all over, but the potential emergence of an uncensored AI and truly uncensored social media, game changer. Okay, I'm gonna go to we'll see if there are any Substack comments today. And if there are not, then I will briefly check the chat. And then we will wrap up. Okay, so just one. And, I don't know if this is even the best format for this anymore, the subscriber feed, because everybody seems to be joining in on the lives during the week, which makes this, I guess, less special because I'll answer your questions there too. So maybe I've kind of steered myself into a brand new problem, but I accept your feedback about that. Let me know what you think. Jester says, I listen to 98% of your shows and love both the live and the pre-recorded formats for different reasons. Personally, I say just do whichever works better for your daily schedule, and I'll be here to listen. Thanks for helping me fine-tune my discernment, and see you on Telegram. Well, That's very kind. Thank you very much. I did not know that that was going to be directly related to the thing that I was just talking about. So that worked very conveniently. Well, there's a +1 for me doing whatever I want. All right, great. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Now, if some crazy shit happens between today and tomorrow, I'll do an episode tomorrow. Otherwise, I might take the day off. I don't think anybody can keep up with this level of content. Or I should say, even if there are some small percent of the audience that can, I don't want to lose people, because when people feel like they fall behind, then they will check out. Okay. And I'm sure that I've done that to people thousands of times over the last few years. But I do what I do. If I thought other people were going to say these things, then I would let those people say these things. But aside from like 5 of my friends, who's going to do that? And I don't know the whole information space. There might be wonderful people out there that I've simply missed. And so I'm not trying, again, to make an exception of myself. If I heard other people out there talking about how elections are fake all the time and how that's not how the leaders of countries are decided, and analyzing global events in a real way rather than talking about politics and countries as though China is this, Russia is that. Every time I see that analysis, I'm like, okay, well, there's no point in engaging with this. What are you going to learn? Maybe you can learn some factual knowledge that they might possess, but ultimately you're going to be lost and left behind, as always, because they're not looking at the real world. They're analyzing portions of the false reality. And that's, I'm sorry to say, worthless. It's worthless. Yeah, I don't know. I wish there was other people talking about it. And, you know, strangely, we talked about that Todd Jacob thread the other day, and I believe it was Dave in the chat. I think Dave's in, I think I saw him in there right now. He clipped, let me see if I can find him. He clipped a segment from yesterday's show, a long segment, and put it up, and I'm very thankful for that. Thank you, Dave. And Todd Jacob, wow, is it gone? Oh, here we go. So now, as I said yesterday, I don't even know if this Todd Jacob guy is a real guy. Okay, this could be an AI account that learns on the Badlands Substack and my podcast, for all I know. But he sounds very much like us. And President Trump posted this, his thread yesterday, to show it to everybody and basically say, hey, maybe you guys should check out this belief system rather than the one over there in Retardopia. And Todd Jacob pops up and says, enjoyed the listen. Now, do I know this is the real Todd Jacob? I certainly do not. He literally joined Truth Social yesterday after Trump posted the thing. Do I know that's a real picture of a person? I think that's probably an AI-generated picture of a person. Following 11 people? Let's see who that is. Normie Fest in here. Damn. How does he have any of these thoughts when he's following J.D. Vance, Tucker Carlson, Sean Ryan, Daily Wire, Charlie Kirk, Janine Pirro, Poso, I love you, and these other 2 random people? Don't know. But he, Dave tagged him into that post, and he appeared in the conversation. I do not know if that is actually him, but if it is, that's awfully interesting. So I followed him. I'll keep an eye on it. I'll see what happens. And I guess with that, I'll take a minute here and look at the chat and just see if I've missed anything. Doom Chick says, thanks. Thank you. Dave is in there. Thank you, Dave. Always great support. I really appreciate you, brother. Snowcat, thank you. Lenny, thank you very much. Oh, there is a Rumble rant. Thank goodness I looked. Some days I don't look. Oh, that was Snowcat. Okay. Thank you, Snowcat, once again. John Henry Bonzo in there, always awesome. Thank you, all of you, very much for your kind words and for your support and for listening. And Bay Theater Dave just said, can we have AI allies? I am pretty certain that we already do, my friend. I'm pretty certain that we already do. I'm just guessing, if the enemy's plan is fully known and we have it all, then we are certainly using all of the tools the enemy has against them. And I think that has to be one. And eventually we're going to have to sort all that out. But I don't think we're at that moment yet. I hope we are coming to the moment of this uncensored thing, because there is no reason why people have to continue suffering in their retardation. It is being thrust upon them by the regime. And I think it is honestly a crime against humanity. That is how serious I am about this stuff, by the way. Like, this isn't because I don't have a big enough platform. Okay. If my platform never grows, if I don't have a future in this, all good. All good. I don't care. I'll find something else to do. I always have. But the fact that people are continuously being lied to and psyoped, and the claim is just simply, well, they need this in order to wake up. Well, maybe, or maybe they could just be exposed to the truth on a regular basis and they wake up that way. And that's always been the case, which is why I have no patience for all of the people on television who are lying about everything all the time on purpose while calling themselves truth tellers. And people are like, well, you're causing discord. These are our allies. No, they're not. No, they're not. We don't need allies. They're not fighting the regime. They're profiting from the regime. They're doing the work of the regime. That's who we are fighting. So they're not our allies. It doesn't matter if they say things that we like sometimes. It doesn't matter if they say nice things about us. None of that matters. Who are you fighting? What are you doing? That's it. Okay, with that, I will be back tomorrow at the same reasonable time on the same reasonable podcast network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They lied to you about a pandemic. And Joe Biden will never be president.
Well, what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
Ah!
And what's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
It's not true. It's more true than I would perhaps prefer.
Can we stop this cruel game and allow the boy to keep one shred of dignity? For God's sakes! I can't stand to see him in all this pain! You vicious bastards! Let him move in with you! Is it so bad to see somebody happy? So just let him move in! For the love of God, let the boy move in with you! Good Lord!
And I will not let you down.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What must be what?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com. And for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon. Down on the range.